Hello and welcome back, or welcome if you're new. If you're new here, my name is Elena. I'm the homeschooling mama to 3 kiddos. Here on the channel, we talk about everything from homeschooling to homemaking, all the things in between. Clearly, we're going to talk about books, but I wanted to recap just this first half of the month, what I've read, because I've been reading quite a bit, for me anyways, the last couple of months, and the videos have gotten really long on my wrap up. So I thought that this month maybe we would try and just do like a mid-month wrap up. So here's what we've read halfway through the month. At the time of that I'm wrapping this up, it is exactly halfway through March. What I typically do is, as I finish up a book or a couple of them, I try to record my thoughts so that I can have them somewhat fresh in my mind. So let's get to what I read so far this month. Okay, I just finished reading Belle, an Amish retelling of Beauty and the Beast by Sarah Price. I was glancing over because I wanted to make sure that I got the author's name correctly. I read this on digital form. This is the first in a 3-part series of an Amish fairy tale. So these are retellings of, I believe it's Beauty and the Beast, Snow White, and Cinderella. And in the first book, in this first one, we actually meet Belle, who is Belle from Beauty and the Beast, and then Sadie, who I believe is going to be Snow White, and then Ella, who I believe will be Cinderella. But I wanted to hop on before, while it was still fresh in my mind, and let you know. Let me wait for the heater to turn off. I always forget that that kicks on. Okay, now you can probably hear the kiddos moving in the background. It's always loud in here. But this story was a sweet retelling. Parts of it, especially kind of towards the middle, I found myself trying to compare it to like the Disney version of Beauty and the Beast and being like, oh, is this the part where this is kind of comparable? Is this? But it doesn't match up exactly like the movie, which makes the book even more endearing, and parts that are just so sweet. There is a part in there where she's drinking from a chipped teacup, and it was so endearing. I felt the nod to Chip in the Beauty and the Beast story, or in the Disney story. At least that's what I took it as. So this story follows Annabelle, and she is our Belle, and she lives on a farm with her 2 older sisters and her dad. And her dad, they've lost their mother, and their dad really has no interest in farming, which can be tough for an Amish person, also someone who lives on a farm, as they do. He's more interested in tinkering around and trying to improve upon some things. The Amish way of thinking, though, is that you make do with what you have, and you don't necessarily always go out and buy something just because you can replace it. You just kind of wear it out, I think is kind of what's happening here. And so it's not something that they would really have a market for in the Amish community. And so he's trying to sell it to the Englishers, and just kind of get something going, because he's not a very good farmer again, and he needs to support his family. Things start to happen. He's in debt, and we meet the Beast character, who is a young man who also doesn't have his parents any longer and has been burned badly in a fire. And of course, as the story goes on, we chip away at who this character really is, more about this man, why he views himself as a beast. We hear others in the community will refer to him as that, which is heartbreaking, because it's heartbreaking because it's hard and rude, but also because it is supposed to be a community based on God's love, and they're supposed to hold tight to these values and these truths, and it doesn't seem that that's really happening a lot in their community. And so we learn more about Belle and the Beast, and how of course Belle learns to fall in love with the Beast, and a little bit more about who he is. I thought this retelling was really sweet and endearing. I just wrapped it up, so I haven't quite yet rated it, but it'll either be like a 4.5, maybe a 5. It was pretty up there. I liked it. I want to read the next one in the series. But if you caught my March like piles of possibility video, you will have known that at the beginning of March, which this is the time of finishing of this book, I was currently reading 6 books. So I went into March reading 6 different books, and so I just, before I start another one, really need to clean up some of my currently reading books. So On to the next one. I'm not really sure what the next book that I'm going to try to complete is. It may be a library book because those need to be returned pretty quickly. I'm thinking I may need to finish The Stolen Heir by Holly Black because that's a brand new book to the library and something that other people will probably have on hold and want to get as quickly as possible. So maybe that'll be the next one on our finished list, but we'll see. I keep going with the reading. I wanted to catch you up on what I finished. I just finished Holly Black, The Stolen Heir. This is a novel of Elfheim. So the Cruel Prince trilogy. I read The Cruel Prince, The Wicked King, The Queen of Nothing earlier, I believe earlier this year, maybe late last year. I want to say it was earlier this year, who knows. But anyways, so it was really nice to go back and visit their world. This follows Oak, the younger brother in there, and Surin, the child queen of the Court of Teeth. And so we meet Surin, I believe, in the third book, possibly the second book of the Cruel Prince series. This one, like I said, it was nice to go back and visit this world, but I would have liked to see some more of the original characters in it. We do see Oak's dad, or Oak's adopted dad, and he's in it in the end. He's not one of my favorite characters, but he makes an appearance. So this story is following Oak as he's older, and Surin also has aged a little bit, and we learn a little bit about them and their story together. And of course there's all kinds of turns and things that happen that you don't see, especially the ending. I was like, wow, that's different. And so it was a good book, but I didn't finish it thinking, wow, this is just amazing. I did think it was a good book. It's definitely like at least a 4-star. So there's that. Finished that one. And then I also finished the last book in the Elm Creek Quilters album. So if you saw, I can't remember which video this is in, where I was saying that I was reading it. I think it's in my middle grade March and Piles of Possibilities. I was mentioning that I just had a little bit more, the last book in here. This is 3 books in one. And I had to finish that one. So I finally finished that one too. I love the Elm Creek series. I'm rereading it, and I'm so in the mood for that, which could possibly be why I wasn't like with this, because I was into a more wholesome kind of thing, maybe, possibly, I don't know. But I finished that, and then I also finished up, I'm not sure if I mentioned that I finished Ella, an Amish retelling of Cinderella. I liked this story. This is the second one in the Amish Fairytale retelling, and Ella is the revision of Cinderella, of course. And this one was really neat to see how Sarah Price, the author, takes on the retelling and makes them more real life stories. I find myself, like I said, I don't know, the Elm Creek series and the Amish retellings. That's kind of my sweet spot right now. That's the mood I'm in, apparently. So there are 3 books in the Amish fairy tales, the retelling. Ella is the second one, and then the last one is Sadie, and I went ahead and got that on my library and the digital read and finished that as well. Sadie is the retelling of Snow White. I thought it was really cute the way that she the way that she put the 7 dwarf characters into there, and I thought the story was good. I read it all the way through, but if I had to like number it from my favorite would definitely be Belle, and then it would probably go in that order: Belle, Ella, and then Sadie. And the only reason I think Sadie was like my least of the 3 that were my favorites is because of the way that the Ella ends. What happens to her stepmom and her stepsisters. My little one is in here playing with dominoes, so that's what you're hearing in the background. But I wanted to hurry and get these out before I didn't. But the reason that I was saying Sadie is probably my 3rd favorite is because the way that Ella ends, and that the consequences that come to her stepmom and her stepsisters, I guess are just in the Amish world. I don't know. I'm not Amish, so I don't know how that works. But then consequences I felt for Sadie's stepmom, I feel like they should have been reversed. I don't want to give too much in case you want to read it, but I feel like Sadie's stepmom, her consequences should have been a lot more harsh than Ella's step family. And I'll leave it at that because I don't want to give it too much in case you want to read it, but I would recommend these books if you like retellings and you like Amish stories. You may really enjoy these. So I didn't get back to making dinner, which is what I was doing, and helping out my kiddos just kind of wind down for the day. But I wanted to get that in and let you know that I finished those, and I don't know what my next. Okay, I finished up a couple more books and wanted to really quickly share with you what I finished. So I read Reggie and Delilah's Year of Falling by Elise Bryant. I ended up getting sick this month and had a couple of days where I just kind of really couldn't do much of anything. And so I tried to catch up on some reading, or I tried to do some reading. And this just felt like a great book, lightweight kind of book to sit and read and while I was recuperating, and it was. This is a charming story about Reggie and Delilah. I kind of did the synopsis for you in my Piles of Possibility. I think I've referred to that video a few times in this video, so I won't bore you with that. But super quick, it is about two, I believe they're high school age kiddos, and they are learning more about themselves, learning how to stand up for themselves, and then of course finding each other along the way. So this was a quick read, lightweight type read. There are some serious bits in here about in the relationship. There's some lying. There's also learning to stand up for yourself, like I mentioned. The book is only 392 pages, and it goes between Reggie's point of view and Delilah. So the chapters kind of go back and forth. But if you're looking for something just, like I said, light-hearted and maybe a fun weekend read, I would recommend this one. I also finished up The Bookwoman of Troublesome Creek by Kim Michele Richardson. This book was not a lighthearted, quick weekend read. This one took me a little bit more time to read because there are some really sad, hard-hitting things in this book. This book has to deal with a woman, Cassie Mary Carter, and she is the bookwoman. So she takes books. There's a new government program where they are trying to reach people who are on the outskirts up in the Appalachian Mountains and in there, and they are giving them books to read, starting kind of like a bookmobile, but on a mule, if you're old enough to remember what the bookmobile is. And so she goes around delivering books and things to people who may not be allowed in the libraries or may not have access to books. And a lot of these people are starving. They don't have enough food. Their families are really struggling. They don't have much money at all. And these books kind of brighten their day. A lot of her patrons can't read, and she'll sit and read with them. The thing with Cassie Mary, though, is that she was born blue. So it was inspired by true blue-skinned people of Kentucky, and it says the brave, dedicated Kentucky Pack Horse Library Service of the 1930s. So she does meet a lot of racism because her skin has a blue tint to it. And there is a lot of, like I said, really hard stuff that happens in there with families that don't have enough money for food, things like that. So a lot of stuff that was true and still is true, but be warned that there is tough stuff in here. But I really wanted to read this book because anytime I brought it up, or anybody who saw me with it and had read it was like, oh, it's such a good book, it's such a good book. It was hard though, because I had just come off of a lightweight read and then went into this, and yeah, there were some sad bits. There were some good bits in here though too, and there is a second book that follows her daughter. The other book that I finished up on digital, I don't know if I mentioned, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. This was a book I listened to it instead of reading it. I think I tried to read it in digital form once, and it hits kind of like a stream of consciousness, I think maybe is what you call it, but it's like a whole conversation that his book, the way the book is written in print, it was really hard for me to read, but listening to was fantastic. So if you have a hard time with it in print, I would highly suggest you pick up the audio version. In fact, I think we may purchase the audio version because it was such a good read, and there are bits that I want to go back and listen to again. I also think that this is a book that my husband may enjoy listening to, and it just talks about what you would think, the ruthless elimination of hurry. So being living in this fast track, hurry, 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 get all the things done world. He even mentions at one point where he's driving and he's like rushing to get to the next point, and he doesn't even know why, because he has plenty of time to be there. He doesn't need to be there at a set time. And that is something that I have often found myself doing as we're going along somewhere, even if it's like just taking the kids to the park or something. We rushing to get there, and I'm like, why? What is the rush? What is this anxiety that I'm creating in myself? And so this kind of really brings it back. It touches on the Sabbath and resting, which is something that we are just kind of dipping our toe into and kind of seeing what that really means and what it will mean for our family. So that book, I loved it, and I am definitely going to try to listen to it again. And then the last book that I just finished up last night was Almost Amish. This was another digital read, and just one that I picked up on a whim. Almost Amish, it follows two women and their families, and they are on a reality show. They go on to a reality show. The reality show wants them to slow down and see what it would be like if we took away some of our modern conveniences, and how the families will react. There's a single mom and her daughter, and then her sister-in-law goes on the show with her and her two children, so her niece and nephew. In this book, Julie is the mom of the two children. She has a boy and a girl and is married, but her husband doesn't come on the show with her. And Julie feels like she is just constantly in this hamster wheel of life, where she is just go all the time. She's kind of the mom taxi, and she's in PTAs and other parent groups, and her baked goods are never quite enough. Her home is never clean enough, which I think a lot of people can relate to, and she just doesn't feel like she is enough. And in comparison to her sister-in-law, Susan, who has one child but is divorced and kind of just is very type A and does everything to what seems like perfection. Her home is always spotless. She has a ministry that teaches other women how to be hospitable. And she does everything, it seems, to the T, like perfect. And Susan is a little bit tightly wound because she has this constant pressure on herself to exceed and to make things as best as she possibly can. Susan and Julie, with their kids, go into this home and go on this reality show. And of course, we see how this affects the women. The reality show kind of wants to set Susan up to have her own show for other women to learn, but in the way they find that maybe people are not relating to her as well as they had hoped. And then Julie is just wanting to go on the show really as a favor to her sister-in-law and not make a fool out of herself. But like I said, they have these challenges for them and things ensue. This was a sweet book. I think towards the end it felt a little, the change of heart that happened pretty abruptly, but it felt a little bit rushed, a little bit forced, but all in all, I didn't think that it ruined the book. I thought it was a great light book. And again, kind of just going with the teachings, I feel like maybe the Lord is showing me of slowing down, even in the midst of where our life is picking up a little bit more personally. Our life is picking up a little bit more, but taking the time to slow down and maybe stop and smell the flowers, if you will. So this was also, I liked this book. This was also an enjoyable read. Next up, I think I really need to get started on my middle grade March reading. I haven't read any. So hopefully the next clip you see will be a completed middle grade March book. Okay, I'm gonna go return this book to the library, but I wanted to recap it really quickly. I just finished reading up Rain, Rain by Anne M. Martin. Oh, this book, it was so good. It is, I've read it for middle grade March, but just really endearing book. It is, I know I get the recap of it if you've not heard about it, but it does have to do with a girl that has Asperger's, and it is written from her point of view. And it also deals with her dad, who is an alcoholic, and it just so much in here, so much in this little book. There's just a ton packed in there. And if you have anyone in your life that is on the spectrum, I think that hearing the story from this point of view, I think the author did a great job, but also it will deeply pull at your heartstrings. I was tearing up in the first chapter when she was just saying that she had Asperger's. My son is diagnosed with Asperger's, and so I think that that's, you know, definitely hit a lot closer to home because of that. But I just can't say enough about this book. Good book. I finished it in a night. It's a small enough book that you could finish it in one sitting. In fact, you probably will, because it's just one of those ones you can't put down. So good. 5 stars. I recommend you read it too. And I think that's where I'm at. I don't think I missed any books, but if I did, I'll try to remember to catch it up at the end of the month wrap up. So let me know if you like this format better, where I'm doing a mid-month wrap up, especially the months that I have more books, more books that I'm reading. I think that's what I'm looking for here. Or if you don't mind the longer videos and actually prefer that at the end of the month, or I think it comes out at the very beginning of the month, of the following month. Let me know which one you prefer. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. And as always, if you don't know, or you just need a reminder, maybe the one to tell you you are deeply and truly loved. Thank you for taking the time out and spending it here with me. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.